following podcast is recorded and produced by Emerge, a media creators co-op, in affiliation with the network at bicbp-radio.com.
Hello and welcome to episode 38 of the Big Yak Podcast. It is I, Mike Pareto. Alongside me as always, Nico Salambeni. And today we have a very special guest. We have Colin Appel from the Chargers Powder Hour podcast. How are you today, Colin?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Of course. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, a little bit about your podcast, how you became a Chargers fan, stuff like that.
Yeah. So a little bit about me. I co-host a Chargers podcast with a buddy of mine. His name is Miles, and we're just past a year on when we started the podcast. So we just started kind of leading up to draft season last season, and we've had a blast, man. We have no idea what we got into, and none of us had any experience with podcasting or, talking sports. We just knew that we were two diehard fans, and we both had common interests that aligned with the Chargers. And we just kind of started talking about Chargers, and our name of the podcast is Chargers Powder Hour. So it's kind of a play on like the powder blues, but also like power hour of drinking. So we drink a lot on the podcast. And, we review beers and all that fun stuff too. So we make it fun. But, so, my fandom, I've been a Chargers fan. I think I'm going on my 17th season.
Oh, wow.
Of being a diehard fan. So I think date back to like the 05-04 season, but really like it was the end of the 04 season. So my dad's a diehard. That's how I got into it. He was born in San Diego. I have a bunch of family out that way, and a bunch of them are fans as well. So at this point, it's kind of a family affair of being a Chargers fan. But that's kind of where mine stems from. And I don't want to speak a whole lot for Miles. He couldn't be here tonight, but I know he's a unique case of just growing up in the middle of nowhere and somehow picking and choosing the Chargers to
the powder
to
blues.
be a fan of.
That's the powder blue effect.
So we were talking a little bit about before the show. So you're from and you're living currently in Nebraska, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
So is there a lot of Chargers fans in Nebraska? Like, what is like the consensus over there? Like, is there just like a mixture? Because there's not a football team really
Just a
except for
bunch of
the
Husker
college
fans.
team. Yeah, the Husker fans.
Yeah.
But like NFL team, like what's like the consensus over there?
It's a great question. I think now it's definitely Chiefs. It's Chiefs everywhere. We're about
Midwest.
where we live.
Chiefs.
We're like a 3.5-hour drive from Kansas City, so we're really not that far. But growing up, it's kind of a hodgepodge of a little bit of everything. I mean, the Chiefs, the Broncos. There's always been a big, steady presence here just because of the locality of those two teams, but you'll see some Bears fans, Packers fans. It's really just a melting pot of, Dolphin. It's a little bit of everything.
What is a dolphin doing in Nebraska is my question.
Right? I mean, it's cool to walk into a bar though.
Oh my goodness,
on a Sunday in Omaha or Lincoln, and it's just, everyone has a different jersey on, so that's pretty cool. It's like you guys said, outside of Kansas City, we really don't have a lot close to us. So, probably a little different from where you guys are at, where it's Bills Mafia. You guys are in the thick of it.
Oh yeah.
You said pre-show you spent a little bit of time in Western New York, and you like brews as well. So my question is, what is your rating on a Labatt Blue?
I don't know if I've tried that.
Really?
Ooh.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Say it again.
Labatt Blue.
Okay, maybe I
mean,
don't know.
it's
maybe if you showed me
it's
the
essentially like the Bud Light.
Okay.
It's the Bud Light of Western New York.
Gotcha. Okay.
Giant, like if you go into Buffalo and you drive into the city, there's these giant vats of Labatt Blue that
Silos.
you see. Yeah, silos is that's the word for it. Like straight silos of blue light. And yeah.
What kind of so like you talked about you guys sample beers and whatnot. So what kind of beers do you guys like? What kind of beers do you guys like?
So we try to have a steady variety on the show. A lot of times, what actually happens though is we'll get like, to the day of, and we'll either open the fridge and there's like a beer left or no beer in the fridge, so you have to go make a run real quick. But I'm a big I like pretty much anything that isn't an IPA.
Okay.
So
That's
fair
take. Valid.
I drink a lot of like Sam Adams, Boulevards. I like a good cerveza. So
nice.
I've done a couple of like different cerveza reviews, like Dos Equis, Sol, Pacifico, and then some local ones too. Nebraska's got some local breweries that we've tried out. So yeah, it's just it's kind of a mix of everything.
What is the brewery scene like out there, if you don't mind me asking?
The brewery scene, it's pretty decent in Lincoln and Omaha. Those are two of the bigger cities in the state. It's the two biggest. And so, yeah, once you get out to like Western Nebraska, there's some smaller towns that have some pretty decent breweries. So, it's actually pretty good.
All right. Yeah, here in Buffalo, it's like it's like around the corner. Like you go, we have like Lewiston. It's a little small town right by Niagara Falls. There's Lewiston. There's all Buffalo. Every part of Buffalo,
every corner in Buffalo has some sort of
there's
bar
some kind of brewery.
Yeah.
They're everywhere. Because you probably have seen the videos. I mean, Bill's Mafia is always drinking. It's just like there's so many there's so many sources of alcohol in Western New York. It's actually
they all do well for themselves.
Yeah, they all do well, but in retrospect, it's probably very unhealthy for all of us. But I mean, it's.
Well, you need something to do in the wintertime when you're buried under like 8 feet of snow. So I don't blame you.
Yeah, it's about to be April on Thursday or Friday.
We just got hit with another flurry coming in today.
Yeah, another like 1 or 2 inches.
Flurry of like 6 feet. Don't worry, yeah, it's just flurry, guys.
Like a little drift, yeah, right.
Yeah. Do you see any Bill's Mafia out that way? Because there's a lot of Bill's backers bars, out in the United States.
Yeah, I'm sure I don't know any good buddies of mine that are Bills fans. But yeah, I mean, you see them. Like, I don't. I would say there's probably a few teams that I just never see, and the Chargers are one of them. But I do see some Bills Mafia here and there out here. I think you guys are kind of everywhere at this point. Yeah. You've just slowly taken over the country and every tailgate.
That's what we like to hear.
World domination.
Buffalo
Bills fans.
Let's talk. So let's get into our show. Let's talk about the AFC West. That's the division we're going to be covering today. Our Big Yak War Room segment. And so since you're a Chargers fan, we're gonna talk about you guys first.
Yeah.
How would you review your guys' offseason so far to this point?
So far, it's kind of been and we knew this going in. It was going to be a roller coaster, a little bit of emotions, but also just, the cap situation that we had to begin with. We were like 20 over what we needed to be cap compliant, and we restructured a handful of deals to get us there, and then at least give us a little bit of room to go out and make deals. Like, I think so far the biggest, and I think what will be the biggest signing of the offseason is Eric Kendricks, who just announced a couple days ago. So that's a great signing for the team. He gives them a lot of versatility at that position. They brought guys back like Donald Parham Jr., Cameron Dicker, not necessarily huge pieces, but big pieces on this team. I think the question now is, one, what's going to go on with the Austin Eckler situation that's unfolded in the last week or so, and two, when's Herbert going to get his deal done? I think those are the two biggest things that are kind of looming at this point. So far, I don't know if I can say so far so good. So far okay,
Just like
I guess.
that's how I kind of felt about the Bills. There's not like that big move that happened.
Yeah, our cap space situation isn't, much better than your guys's. So, we've had to settle for very, not like minimal signings, but basically
smaller
minimum
depth
yeah.
signings, re-signing your own guys, draft, retain,
Yep.
extend. I really like the Chargers offseason so far. I think they're doing the right thing and heading into the right direction, re-signing their own, bringing in those missing pieces. And like you said, those younger guys, like Trey Pipkins was a guy that I liked coming out of college. He re-signed on a multi-year contract, which another great move for you guys. So I'm liking the Chargers offseason so far. The question I wanted to ask you was moving from Joe Lombardi to Kellen Moore. How do you think the scheme is going to change?
Oh man, I think it's going to change quite a bit. I mean, just looking back at what the Cowboys offense has been the last couple of seasons with him kind of running the show. I'm just excited to get off of Joe Lombardi. I think, it's not. I don't think it happens very often, but there are times where you just, as a fan base, I think you're so ready to move on from a coach. Like when their firing is announced, you're just kind of like, hey, like anything is an upgrade at this point. And that's how I feel like a lot of Charger fans felt, especially towards the end of this last season. Just frustrations with Lombardi's scheme, how some players were being utilized, and the lack of speed that this roster has, and I guess just ignoring of that. Not going out and addressing that at the trade deadline or in the draft this last season. So no, I think the offense is going to look quite a bit different. I think you're going to see some bigger shots downfield, some bigger exciting plays. So yeah, I'm really excited to kind of see how Kellen Moore can unlock Justin Herbert's arm.
Do you think Austin Eckler will start the season in the Powder Blues?
I do.
Yep.
I do. I think he'll be a Charger for the entire 2023 season. Beyond, I have no idea.
Yeah. So he made some comments saying that he's very underpaid. Do you agree with that statement?
Yes. Oh, 100%. I think most fans are on his side. I don't think it's I think a couple of years ago when this kind of situation came up with Melvin Gordon, I think some fans had some discourse with what we were willing to offer him and what he was asking for. But I don't think anyone's denying the fact that, with his production, Austin Eckler is very much underpaid. He's basically, I kind of view him as the same guy as Christian McCaffrey in a lot of senses. And you look at the two deals that those guys are on, and it's completely different. So yeah.
Yeah, Austin Eckler, I don't know if you play fantasy football or not, but Austin Eckler is top 3 running back, top 3 pick.
Top 3 pick.
Top 3 pick.
You could make the case that he'd be number 1 overall this year.
Yeah. And we had that discussion last year, heading into the season as well.
Where we put Eckler. He's always up there somewhere, but you never know quite where, but he finishes just the same every single year. I'm just looking at some of the numbers. A $7.75 million cap hit for 2023, which is severely underpaid compared to guys like Derrick Henry, who's making $16 million this year. Nick Chubb, $14 million. Dalvin Cook, $14 million. Joe Mixon, $12 million. So as a team, you're like, great, he's only making this much. But as a fan of the player, you're like, he needs to be paid much more. I mean, he's the number 12 paid running back in the league.
Oh my.
Yeah, and I think the question with Austin Eckler is how much do you give him, right? Like, I think he's going into his age 28 season. Yep. And so, typically with running backs, you coming up on 30, it's like, it's scary, right? Like you start to really pump the brakes and you're like, whoa, I think I want to get off this ride. Because it usually just crashes and burns after this, right? So, I think the Chargers are now kind of going into like, how much can we, if they do negotiate a new deal, how much can we squeeze out of him and not,
Overpay.
kind of be stuck with him on the back end of a deal.
Right.
And how much do we give him per year?
Right. And, running backs, it's been a little bit of a tricky kind of market for them. As we've seen, McCaffrey's getting, a bunch of money. Derrick Henry, $16 million, as Nico just stated. And a lot of people just think like the longevity of the running back is declining. As you said, that 30-year-old age hits, and a lot of people are sitting here like, oh, what running backs really last after 30? So I mean, a guy like Austin Eckler though is just.
I think his play style definitely benefits his age.
Yes.
He's not like going through and bruising he's not like a Derrick Henry type style.
Now, I will say this, and this is just completely my own opinion, where I would be willing to give him a contract maybe that lasts past age 30 season, 30, 31, into that territory. And think about this. If the Chargers go out at 21 and Bijan Robinson is sitting there, imagine a world where Bijan Robinson is RB1 and Austin Eckler is still Austin Eckler.
Yeah.
And to think about the miles you would take off those tires, where he doesn't have to run, doesn't have to be the third down back, doesn't have to be the 4th and 1 guy. You have Bijan for that, right? And then both guys are just insane out of the backfield catching the ball. I mean, what a nightmare that would be for defenses. And this is the only reason I've still contemplated taking Bijan at 21, is just for the fact that there's a world where there's a backfield with Austin Eckler and Bijan Robinson, and I want to live in that world. I think that would be insane.
It reminds me in a way of when the Browns had Nick Chubb and then they had acquired Kareem Hunt.
Yeah,
when they were back when they were a few years younger, and you look at it, I mean, that was easily the best running back duo in the league. They were the best rushing team in the league, and I could definitely see the same thing if the Chargers draft Bijan at 21.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that. So me and Nico recently came out with our first mock drafts, and it's about a week and a half ago, almost 2 weeks ago. And so we have the Chargers picking at 21. I had him, I don't know, I forget if we had the same pick or not, but I had Jordan Addison, the receiver from USC, going at 21. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I like Addison. I've seen him go to the Chargers in a couple of mock drafts. High 4.4 guy, 4.5 guy.
Yep.
If I'm correct.
Yep.
I think, I mean, look, I would take him if he was there, and if I'm a GM, I would. I mean, depends on who else is on the board, but if you had to ask me, would you want him on your team or not? For sure. I think the biggest thing with a receiver, especially on this roster, and I think most fans would tell you this, the lack of speed. Like, if they're gonna go receiver at 21, I think they already have 3 guys that are better than Jordan Addison if they were to draft Jordan Addison. Those guys being Keenan, Mike, and then Josh Palmer. I think what they don't have is a real speed threat, someone to really take the top off of defense, and that's where a guy like Zay Flowers, in my opinion, either if they're gonna go receiver in round 1, I think that would be my pick, but. I mean, as you guys saw too, there's a lot of speed in this receiver class, and it doesn't all necessarily come in the first round. So even getting one of those speedsters in the second or third rounds, I think would be a solid move.
Would you? So in both me and Mike's mock, we had Jalen Hyatt going at 31 to the Chiefs. Would you see?
That would kill me. That would kill me.
That would kill us too, because we always see the Chiefs.
We face the Chiefs once a year now. It's a yearly thing. And would you be upset with the pick of a guy like Jalen Hyatt at 21? Is that too high?
No. Like, the Chargers really put themselves in a bad position this season by not drafting a single receiver in last year's draft. And they've had a couple of failed kind of developmental pieces that just haven't panned out. And so on receiver depth alone, this is a team that only carried 4 receivers down the stretch and into the playoffs.
Yep.
Like, I mean, that alone, it left a lot of fans kind of scratching their heads. But No, I would not be mad. I mean, I think they have to start preparing for a world without Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. And I think the restructuring this year of Keenan's deal,
Yep.
I think almost but guarantees he's a cap casualty next year, or an even stronger case to be a cap casualty than he was this year. So they have to start preparing for a world without either A, Keenan Allen or Mike Williams. And I think they'd probably be more committed to Mike at this point in their careers. So no, I mean, yeah, I've always viewed Jalen as a late first round pick, and yeah, to now finally see him kind of come down into that first round, like that makes more sense to me.
Yeah. You talked about Bijan. We talked about receivers. Besides those two skill positions, what else would you like to see Los Angeles go at 21? Would you like to see him, touch up on the offensive line, defensive line, maybe like defensive back? Anything else than skills would you like to see? Because there's a couple of guys like like an interior guy like Brian Breesy on the defensive side, or you can go like Osiris Torrance. Any guys like that?
I have seen, and I haven't. I mean, I've liked the mocks that I've seen him go to the Chargers. Is it Will McDonald?
Yeah, Will McDonald, Iowa,
fourth, the fifth, or
End,
yeah. Iowa State, I think. I've seen him in a couple of mocks, and that I could get behind. Chargers do need some edge depth, not only this year, but I mean, especially next season. I think, either one, Joey Bosa, or two, Khalil Mack is probably not going to be around next year just because of their contracts and the way they're structured. So they definitely need depth, and that was apparent in this last season. We saw Joey Bosa go down, and Khalil Mack was still Khalil Mack, but it just wasn't enough. They needed another presence on the other side. So, yeah, I've liked that pick. I've also liked the Brian Branch picks.
Safety,
the mocks from him.
Him and Derwin James would be a nightmare for offensive coordinators.
Yeah.
Yes, and safety is another area of depth, and Nasir Adderley just retired, I think, about a week ago, which was a pretty big shock to most people. But they have Alohi Gilman, which is on paper he would be the starter if they were to play tomorrow. At that strong safety position. So, yeah, they need depth there, and we'll see how the rest of free agency plays out, because I've seen some rumors that John Johnson from Cleveland could be a target for the Chargers. So that could change a lot of things if that goes through. But yeah, safety really, any D-back position and edge position, I think would be a good piece if they were not to go, weapon in round one.
That was going to be my next question, actually, with how low the safety market has been. You saw like Jordan Poyer for the Bills, just the Bills alone. Jordan Poyer re-signed on a really, really small deal, and then they also went out and signed Taylor Rapp from the Rams. At a $1.7 million contract or something ridiculous like that. I was going to ask if there's any free agents left for safeties to kind of back that and add some more depth to it. But you answered my question.
Yeah, and I haven't looked a ton at, just the free agent safety class. Those are just some strong rumors that I've seen. But look, the Chargers are still, I think they're playing with like 6 or 7 million in spending space. So, I think what they're doing is just, they're going to be one of those teams that continues to pick off some vets here, whether it be a month from now, a month and a half from now, as we get closer to OTAs, and probably even over the summer as we get closer to camp. And that's just the position that they've kind of put themselves in, especially after this last year of spending.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so that was the Chargers. We're gonna move on and talk a little bit about the Las Vegas Raiders. They're a very interesting spot. They're sitting at 7th overall. On my mock draft, I have them going cornerback. I have them going Oregon cornerback Christian Gonzalez. Currently, their cornerbacks are David Long and Duke Shelley, so that's obviously a huge hole for them. You could also see like a guy like Devin Witherspoon going here as well.
That's where I had him going. In my mock.
Yeah. So a little bit about the Raiders. Not the biggest off season. They went out and they got Jimmy Garoppolo. So he's slated to be their starting quarterback for this upcoming season. But I mean, is Jimmy the long-term answer here? I don't think so. He's Jimmy. He's gonna win you some games.
He's not gonna lose you anything.
He's one of the prettiest quarterbacks in the league. All the ladies love him. But
it's perfect for Vegas.
Perfect for Vegas. Oh, that's dangerous. I didn't even think about that.
They tagged Josh Jacobs. They re-signed Amir Abdullah.
Yeah.
They signed Austin Hooper and O.J. Howard.
Some tight ends.
And then grabbed a couple receivers. Keelan Cole, Philip Brissett, Jacoby Myers was the bigger one.
Mm-hmm.
And then they went out and beefed up their defensive line with Jordan Willis, John Jenkins, Jerry Tillery. And they have a whole list, like a grocery list worth of free agent moves. So this is a team that's rebuilding, and I think they're going to kind of just throw a bunch of darts at the wall and see
what happens.
Yeah.
Do you agree with us, Colin?
I do, and weirdly, like after the AFC West offseason last year, where it was just the stockpiling of ammunition for every team, I think the Raiders actually got better this offseason opposed to last offseason.
Yeah,
I think
I agree.
Jimmy Garoppolo really does make them probably 2 to 3 games better. And look, I mean, Derek Carr isn't a terrible quarterback, but I think he's prone to kind of putting teams in positions of like getting down early and trying to have them to come back out of a hole. There was a stat I think that was like Derek Carr has the most comeback game-winning drives in the last handful of years, and I'm like, well, that's because he always puts himself down by
the reason
2
he got
touchdowns.
there. Yeah.
I mean, that's how he wins every game. And so, yeah, I think Jimmy's just going to win those 2 to 3 games a year that the Raiders, for whatever reason, lose. It's just there's 2 to 3 games the Raiders lose every year where you're like, how do they lose that game?
The Raiders.
Right.
Old Raiders magic.
So, yeah, I think what he'll do is at least, give him wins in those games. And I think they get a little better. And I still think they finish, 3rd in this division. But, yeah, I mean, as to what they do in the draft, I know what I think they should do. But what's your guys' take on that?
Yeah, we're thinking cornerbacks. Their secondary is looking very scary. I mean, they have Trevon Moehrig. I don't know if I said that right. But he's a solid safety. But other than that, yeah, just a little. That's those corners are looking. They have Nate Hobbs, but he plays nickel. Yeah. You need a really good outside presence at corner. So that's what me and Nico think. I seen a lot of mocks have them taking Will Levis, quarterback out of Kentucky. I personally think that they're going to ride with Jimmy until they can't, ride with him anymore. So, I think they need to address other needs before quarterback, but, it's not bad to think long-term if you really think Will Levis is your guy, or even if you trade up and get into that top 5, the Raiders could do that. Do I think they're going to? No. I think they should go corner. So
yeah, I think so. And you take a look at the quarterback class next year as well. Caleb Williams and Drake May kind of headline that. It's almost like, okay, a move with Jimmy G isn't going to lose you any more games, but they could end up in the same situation where they have a top 10 pick, and maybe they're already eyeing those guys.
Right.
How long was the deal that they signed him to? I guess I didn't really pay attention to that.
3 years, $72.75 million. So it seems like they have a year to see what they kind of want to do with Jimmy G. I mean, he's not the oldest quarterback. He's not the youngest quarterback. But that puts them in pretty good position to move on. I'll have to look at to see like where they can kind of get out of the contract.
Mm-hmm.
But with the Jimmy G signing, that seems like I don't know if they'll really go QB this year unless an Anthony Richardson kind of falls to them.
Yeah, and that's actually where I was kind of trending towards as well. Because I don't know if I don't know how they structure the contract, but if they kind of give themselves an out after year 2, then they could, go quarterback in this class. And Anthony Richardson, like, I think that's the only one. Like you said, if he falls, I would take him in a heartbeat if I were the Raiders.
Yeah.
I if it's between him and Will Levis, then I'll Jimmy G and Will Levis for another year, then I'd probably take Jimmy G. But yeah, if no quarterback's there, I'm going cornerback as well. I think Devin Witherspoon would be a solid pickup for them. But yeah, I think that quarterback hierarchy at the top of the draft is really going to be interesting to see how it unfolds.
So they have a potential out in 2024. Speaking of, so that really kind of makes things interesting to where they can compete with Jimmy G this year, and then look at next year's class.
Right.
Yeah. Going on to the Denver Broncos. So Denver Broncos, if they didn't trade their pick to Seattle, they would be picking number 5. So they are not in the first round. So let's talk a little bit about them. Denver was one of those teams where you thought that they were going to be.
They looked like they were going to compete with the Chiefs
with Russ
last year. I think I had the Broncos winning the division.
I actually had the Chargers. No, to be honest, I had the Chargers. I had like Chargers, Chiefs, and I think it was like Broncos, Raiders. I think that was my like way too early division rankings last year, and then Chiefs became the Chiefs again, and Denver, looked horrible. Just being honest. And this offseason, we talked about it a couple weeks ago when the free agency frenzy was going on in Denver. We considered Denver one of the losers of the free agency frenzy. I just think that they overpaid a little too much for some of the guys, like Zach Allen. He's a decent interior defensive lineman, but severely overpaid him. I just think Mike McGlinchey, that's more of a justifiable signing because he can – they really needed some.
They needed a franchise tackle.
Yeah. So that one is more justifiable, but again, I don't know. I just don't think they did the necessary moves this offseason to make them a contender with, you guys and the Chiefs.
I will say I really liked the Ben Powers move for them. It really solidified that interior line.
Yeah.
And then the Samaje Perine signing is low key one of the best signings of the offseason. It's a
very low key signing. Yeah.
With Javonte Williams still kind of nursing an ACL/MCL tear, Samaje Perine has looked more than serviceable in his time filling in for Joe Mixon. And once Javonte Williams comes back, him and Samaje Perine, I could see a lot of magic happen over there.
Yeah. And look, I think the real question is like, is Russ going to bounce back at all? And me personally, I don't see it. And I think a lot of that comes just based on who I know is running the offense now over
Joe Lombardi,
which is Joe Lombardi. And it was a big reason why when people were, had their pitchforks out for Brandon Staley and were demanding Sean Payton to take over, I'm like, this doesn't solve our problem because Sean Payton, his offensive coordinator, is already in the building. Like, our offense is like we need change of the offense position. So I just, man, when I saw that they signed Joe Lombardi, I chuckled and let out a big smile. But look, in that offense with Russ, like I don't think that offense solves a lot of their issues that they had last year. And if anything, like I think it probably makes them worse. But I don't know. We'll see. I mean, just with the weapons they have, they always pose a threat. I mean, they're, I still pick them to finish last in this position, exactly like last season.
Yeah.
But man, the Sean Payton, Russ, narrative in Denver is going to be like, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better for those guys.
It's going to get real spicy because both of those are like two ends of the spectrum. Russ is
Right.
just a weird dude.
And I think that's what hurts him a lot is, there's a lot. You heard the reports coming out last year, the whole, Broncos country thing. And, let's ride. And it was the whole, you couldn't get a hold of him, stuff like that. There's just no teammate chemistry.
He has an office.
He has an office. He's in his own office. It's like, it doesn't seem like he's just a team player. And I just don't think they're ever going to. I think the bridge has already been burned. If we're going to be completely honest.
And then there's the news of, Sean Payton walks in the building and then he figures out, he's like, wait, Russ has his own team of, his own staff, in the building. Like, no. Like, they're out. Give me back their key cards because they're out of here.
Yeah.
Right.
That Jamal Adams, that clip of him trying to go into the Jets facility.
Yes. So, yeah, man, it's already kind of like, he's already taken over the reins in Denver. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, just looking at their free agency, I don't think they've done enough. We'll see how they draft. We already know they've lost the draft just based on the Drew Lock trade with Russell Wilson.
God.
But yeah, no, I still see this team finishing last. I think they get better. I think they get a game or two better. But still finishing in the basement for me.
Yeah. So yeah, they're without a first-round pick. I mean, other team needs, I'd probably say a little bit more of their interior offensive line they need to touch up on. I mean, currently they did get Ben Powers, as we mentioned, but they're starting center and guard. They have Quinn Miners. He's their starting right guard, and center is Lloyd Cushenberry. Lloyd Cushenberry, he's solid. I do think they need to get another guard to pair with Ben Powers. And then linebacker as well. They need another pass rusher because they have Randy Gregory, but outside of Randy Gregory, they didn't really address the departure of Bradley Chubb. And I think they really need to try to find a guy in day 2, day 3, one of those diamonds in the rough to try and replace that hole. But it could get a little scary for the Denver Broncos, or we might see the team that we were supposed to see last year. But as a consensus, I think they're going to be 3rd or 4th.
I mean, they have 6. They have in round. They don't have a second round pick. They have 67 overall, 68 overall, 108, 139, 195. You're not going to get a top end player in any position at that point in the draft.
Yeah. You gotta
so
get lucky.
You gotta really trust your scouts, trust your GM to turn it around, and like you said, find those diamonds in the rough.
That trade, keep looking back on that trade with Seattle, and it's just like, oh my God, how bad Denver got fleeced. It was just.
You knew too. Like halfway through the year, you're just like, oh, this is only gonna get worse for these guys.
Yeah. I wonder, looking back at it now, do you think they'd rather have the top 5 pick or Russell Wilson?
I'm taking the top 5 pick.
Yeah, top 5, because then that turns into like Anthony Richardson most likely.
Yep.
Yeah, it's top prospect, and I mean, they probably could have. This might be a bold take. Here, but if Drew Lock was their quarterback last year, I think it wouldn't have been that much of a difference.
I
Honestly.
don't think that's too hard of a take.
It wouldn't have been that much of a
Couldn't
difference.
have gotten much worse.
Yeah, you might
arguably better.
Right.
Yeah, you don't know. You really don't know. They might have dropped down to like 3rd overall, but you're still sitting at a top, bottom 5 team with Russell Wilson at quarterback. Like at that point, you might as well. I mean, you didn't know what you're gonna get out of it, but at that point, you might as well have kept Drew Lock, and you still would have been.
You would have picking better this year.
Picking better. You would have had your pick, and you would have had you would have had your 1st and 2nd round pick. It's just They're
hey, not my thing to worry about. So I'm still sleeping. I'm still sleeping really well.
Yeah. And then our last team, the Super Bowl champion,
The boogeymen,
the Kansas City Chiefs. We probably have a mutual agreement here. We probably do not like them, the same amount. You guys face them twice a year, but we always find we damn near face them twice a year because of not this past year because we didn't make it to the title game, but in years prior, it's like a twice a year battle with them. Once in the regular season and once in the playoffs. It's we get the regular season wins here and there, but the postseason we can't figure it out. But Yeah. Kansas City Chiefs. Always find
AFC
a way.
gets better and better, and you know what? The Chiefs stay the same. Patrick Mahomes
Yeah.
is still Patrick Mahomes, and it's going to be like that for the next 10 years.
Or longer.
And it's funny how just another Super Bowl appearance and another Super Bowl championship had to happen for people to kind of like be like, okay, they're going to be an issue for a while, because last year they lose Tyreek Hill and everyone's like, oh my God, they came back down
Chiefs
to earth.
are done.
Like, these
Chiefs
guys
are finished.
That's why I picked
These
the
guys might not
Chargers
make
to
the
win.
playoffs. And I'm sitting here like my co-host Miles was saying that like we were doing our AFC West preview just like we're doing here, and leading up to the season, you know, we're excited, and he's like, dude, I don't know, the Chiefs, they're vulnerable. And I'm like, stop it. Like, they're still the Chiefs. Like,
So the Chiefs.
answer me this. Who is Patrick Mahomes still the quarterback? Is Andy Reid still the coach?
Oh, yeah.
Then you have to worry about them. Like, they're going to be there at some point. So it doesn't really matter what they do in the offseason at this point. Like, I don't really know. I haven't paid too much attention to what they brought in, but no, man, until someone knocks them off, like they're the incumbent, you know, shoe-in number one pick every year.
Yeah. I mean, they did lose Eric Bieniemy to Washington. So Matt Nagy is the offensive coordinator. They promoted him from quarterbacks coach. You lose Juju to Kansas City. I mean, it didn't really seem like they were really reeling to get him back. They really let him test the waters. And then Orlando Brown, he walked, but they ended up replacing him with Jawan Taylor from Jacksonville, who's also a young, solid offensive tackle. We could, you know, sit here and try to contest, oh, they're going to be different. They lost some key pieces, but as we just said, you know, they're still the Chiefs.
Let's not forget DeAndre Hopkins is still on the menu too.
Yeah.
He's still out there to go, and from most recent reports, it still seems like it's the Chiefs and the Bills that are in the winning or in the lead of the sweepstakes. Both teams at the same time, they had beat reporters tweet out that their respective team is no longer in the DeAndre Hopkins sweepstakes.
Mm-hmm.
So if there are no teams in currently, that would likely mean that Arizona lowers their price, and then that means those teams that were out are suddenly back in. So Chiefs are still in it by all means, and that's a nightmare that I kind of think about of, okay, you lost Tyreek Hill last year. You did just fine. You won a Super Bowl without him. Now let's see if you go add DeAndre Hopkins into that offense. Then what happens?
And they'd be a little bit scary. I mean, you know, I think Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore really take, you know, key roles in this offense to become starters this year. And then you're sitting here, the other receiver spot with Marquez Valdes-Scantling. You know, he wasn't really that. You know, he had his moments, but he wasn't really a consistent guy. So you plug in DeAndre Hopkins right there, replace Valdes-Scantling, you knock him back down to the bench, and you're sitting at, you know, still a scary Kansas City offense. So.
Yeah, and my real fear is kind of what we talked about earlier, and you know, someone in the draft falls to them at 31, and you know, like a Jalen Hyatt or a, you know, Zay Flowers, or just someone that should probably be off the board by like 22, 23 that falls into their lap is always, I mean, that's my draft day, like worst case scenario of like, oh man, who fell into the Chiefs' lap?
Mm-hmm.
Every year, it reminds me of when the Patriots used to do that to the
Yeah.
Bills. They would just happen to get all the best players. Just so happened every year. The Bills would move up, try to do their thing. They went like E.J. Manuel, Sammy Watkins. They moved up and spent valuable assets and still nothing.
Yeah.
So we saw it for 20 years with the Patriots, and now we're seeing it again with the Chiefs.
Yeah. I mean, personally, you know, you're sitting at 31. You're kind of leaning, you know, as you're the Chiefs, you can most likely do best player available.
You can go wherever you want.
You go wherever
You're the
you want.
Chiefs.
Yeah, that's why we said
Yeah.
Jalen Hyatt. You know, Jalen Hyatt sitting there at 31 is a guy, you know, you plug him into this offense. Doesn't need to start necessarily. He can develop, and say if Kadarius Toney doesn't work out or Sky Moore doesn't work out as long-term starters, you plug Hyatt in, and now, you know, it's so, I don't know, man.
There are
It's-
21
yeah.
different starting roles out of 22 that you can take at pick 31.
Yes.
The only one
I-
being quarterback. The only one that you
I
don't
think-
take is quarterback, and that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I think there's a real chance of like any of those top guys falling to that spot at 31. It's probably Bijan. Like
Yeah.
if teams are
Read
really
my
going to be
mind.
like nervous about taking a running back in the first, and the Chiefs are just the Chiefs, and they're like, wait a minute, you're telling us the best running back prospect we've seen in the last couple of years is just sitting there. Who do we have at running back? Oh wait, Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Jerick McKinnon. Yeah, we'll take him. Like that would be no bueno.
I could even see them going Jahmyr Gibbs here. You know, they have Isaiah Pacheco, who had a really strong postseason and end to his rookie year.
Oh, I forgot about Pacheco.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire kind of he fell off.
Yeah, he really fizzed out for sure.
Yeah.
So I could see them going, even if Bijan isn't there, going Jahmyr Gibbs. Just add another playmaker to that offense if they don't have the receiver that they want on the board.
Yeah. I can see pass rusher here as well. I mean, they let Frank Clark. They released Frank Clark. So George Karlaftis, the first round pick last year, really emerges into with Chris Jones as the top pass rushers on this team. You have Charles Omenihu. He's also the other starting defensive end. Yep. So realistically, you could go pass rusher here. You could even throw in like a linebacker. The linebackers are Nick Bolton, Willie Gay. You could go linebacker as well. They also got Drew Tranquil from LA Chargers.
That's why I think they won't. But no, that was a really good signing for them. But yeah, I could definitely see pass rusher and maybe even DB if they were to go that defensive side.
Yeah, I mean DB. They signed Mike Edwards from Tampa Bay, so he's most likely going to start. So I mean, safety wise, they'd have Justin Reed, Mike Edwards, and then corners, L'Jarius Sneed, Trent McDuffie, and then Jalen Watson. So I mean, Jalen Watson. Give or take, he had a decent postseason, but I think
he had a solid end to his rookie year. I think they could. Yeah, I could definitely see them adding depth there. I don't know if they'll address it on day one. Like I said, pass rusher or offensive playmaker, I think, is the most likely move. But like we said, you could draft any position here,
BPA
minus quarterback, and still have a fantastic draft.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Alrighty. So that was the Kansas City Chiefs.
Before we move on, has anyone kept up with the Chiefsaholic drama?
I have not.
I just saw an article, I think yesterday, that I kind of like skim read the just like the top part. But yeah, what was he in the news for again yesterday?
So throwback to a month or two ago, he robbed a bank. And he so then he now was supposed to have his court date the other day, and he skipped it and also broke off his ankle monitor, and now he's on the run. So there is a $1 million warrant issued for the arrest of Chiefsaholic.
I'll find him.
$1 million, but hey, he might be heading towards Nebraska. Like there's an off chance you can make a couple bucks.
You know what they should just do? Like, this is the easiest solution, right? You send him something in the mail that's like, hey, you just won this like meet and greet with Patrick Mahomes, and you make it look all official. Dude, he would be there in under 30 minutes. Like, you have your guy.
Got the little like mouse trap ready for him.
Right. Like, he just shows up, and like Patrick Mahomes is like actually standing there, and then there's just like 6 cops. And he's like,
they're all in Patrick Mahomes' jerseys. But yeah, he's right now I wonder, like, is he wearing the wolf costume on the run right now? Is he like
just the mask?
Just the mask.
and normal like everyday clothes, but just the mask.
You can't miss him. Or he's hiding in the woods in the wolf costume, like
disguising himself with the elements.
I can't believe they haven't found him yet. So he's still on the run. I think this is the biggest move of the offseason for the Chiefs is Chiefsaholic on the run.
Losing the biggest super fan.
How this unplays.
So I don't know who's gonna fill his spot in the fan rankings, but that had to be mentioned. Hopefully we have an update on this in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, we gotta definitely keep an eye out for that. So that's all we have today. Colin, do you have anything you want to add before we all sign off?
Give me your top 5 quarterback rankings right now. I just want to see something.
Like
I just want to see something.
all NFL?
Yeah, your top 5 league wide.
You want to go first, Nico?
Number 1 is Patrick Mahomes. We can all, I think, consensus agree there. Number 2 is going to be, for me right now, if I'm like gun to my head, I am picking Joe Burrow's my number 2. And it's between Joe Burrow and Josh Allen, but Joe Burrow mopped the floor with the Bills in the playoffs. So from there, it looked like before the Damar Hamlin incident, that game, it looked like they were going to do the same thing in the regular season. So I'm only going to give them Joe Burrow. I'm going to put Joe Burrow there because of he's been to a Super Bowl. He's been to now 2 consecutive AFC championships. He has the pedigree, and he's willing wins to this team in the postseason when it matters most. Number 3, I'm going Josh Allen. That is, he could be. He has the potential to be that 1A or 1B. He just needs a Super Bowl. Number 4 and number 5 is where it gets tricky. From here, I want to say I have Jalen Hurts as number 4. He's just coming off of the Super Bowl. Not winning, but honestly, if the Eagles had won that game, he would have been the MVP. He played out of his mind. Defense just couldn't stop cold. So that's my number 4, and then number 5 is open. I don't. I'd have to really think about it. Maybe a guy like maybe Aaron Rodgers on the Jets. I think he could have. He's only 1 year removed of back-to-back MVPs. The talent is still there. He's still Aaron Rodgers. So I'm going to put Aaron Rodgers at number 5 right now.
For me, I'm going Mahomes as well. Mine's basically almost the same. I'm going Mahomes 1. Success-wise, Burrow has Allen, but I think talent-wise, I am taking Josh Allen. So I'm going to go Allen 2, Burrow 3, Hurts 4, Rodgers 5. And then my honorable mention, I would probably throw your guy Justin Herbert in there, or I'd probably throw
at 6.
I want to say Lamar Jackson. I really want to say Lamar Jackson, but I just can't right now because we don't know, and this whole season he had last year, so a lot of question marks around him. But yes, so those are mine.
Okay, well, first of all, shame on you guys for not having Herbert in either of your top 5.
Hey, Herbert's my number 6.
I was thinking, man, they'll probably have him like 4 or 5. Like I can live with that. But not in. I'll let it slide. But.
See, I like Herbert. I like him a lot. I want to see him more in the postseason.
I think I have a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth from last season. That's from the playoff game. That's probably
and rightfully so. I think one of my good buddies who's a diehard Chiefs fan, he is like one of the few people that acknowledges that he's like, dude, you guys have a dog in Justin Herbert. He's like, I know he's like the national media, whatever, but he's like, trust me, like if there's one quarterback that like I'm terrified of, he's like maybe Joe Burrow, but he's like it's Herbert. So my top 5, I agree with you guys on most of them as well. I think you got to go Mahomes 1. I think I would go Burrow 2, just based on the success and, like you said, back-to-back AFC Championship games, Super Bowl appearance. So I'll go Burrow 2. This is where it gets tricky for me. 3, 4, 5. I'll go for the graces of being on this show. I'm gonna go Allen 3 and then Herbert 4. But to me, they're on the same level. I think they're kind of tied for 3rd behind those first 2 guys. And yeah, I think Herbert hasn't had the postseason success that Allen has had, but numbers wise, stat wise, and you just look at if you were to build a quarterback in a lab, it's either Josh Allen or Justin Herbert. So I'll go 3, 4 there, and then 5. I'm actually going to go Trevor Lawrence.
That's a good pick.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence, for me right now, Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence are at like 6A, 6B.
Sure.
And honestly, if you kind of look at all of them, after 1, 2 through 7 can really be interchangeable.
Right.
Arguments could be made
Yeah.
for each one of those players at 2 through 7. And it'll be really interesting to see next year how that kind of lays down.
And I think a lot of those guys too, like they're so young, like they just need 1 year. Like, was Jalen Hurts in anyone's top 10 rankings last year, let alone like top 5? And it's like, you put
Maybe
together a
Eagles
good
fans.
season, you make it to the Super Bowl, you either win it or make it, and all of a sudden it's like everyone has you top 5. Just kind of how like the whole Lamar MVP season, the other year, it's kind of lightning in the bottle. Lamar is still Lamar, but it's like a season like that, I think, can catapult any one of them. I mean, if Josh Allen has a season like that this next season, then I think he's, on most people's list, he's probably like nudging Mahomes,
Just like how
So-
it was going into last year.
Last year, it was like
1A,
Mahomes
1B.
1, Allen 2, and then Burrow
Right.
was like 3.
Yeah. So it's going to be fun. I say fun, but it's also going to be like tough to watch the AFC over the next 5 or 10
It's-
years
Yeah.
because
The AFC
it's
is a
just going to be a
quarterback
shootout.
powerhouse. So then I guess I got to ask, who are your top 3 NFC quarterbacks? I'll say 3 just because it could get dicey
Yeah.
beyond 3.
It's getting a little scary at that, yeah.
It gets dicey there. Oh man, can I think of 3? Here we go. Well, Jalen Hurts, I think he's the new number 1. Probably go. Well, as of right now, Aaron Rodgers too. As of right now, we'll see how that whole scenario shakes out.
Still Packers
Um,
quarterback as of right now.
Still on the
Yeah,
roster.
that's true.
Yeah.
Number 3, I'm gonna go Derek Carr
Derek Carr over Dak Prescott?
over Dak. Yep.
All right.
It was Dak or Derek, and I'm going Derek.
One of the D guys.
I mean,
Yeah.
me personally, I'd probably go like Hurts. I'm going to keep Rodgers out of it just because I do think he's going to the Jets. So if I'm going to not name Rodgers, I'm going to go Hurts, Dak, and then 3 is like a toss-up. I might go Kirk Cousins, 3.
You guys ready?
Yeah.
for
A
mine?
little scary, but I don't know. I might go.
They're all the same guy.
Yeah.
Like, Carr, Dak, Kirk Cousins. So
Give me
it doesn't matter.
Give me Hurts at 1, of course. Give me Dak at 2. Give me Dak at 2. I think you could still win a Super Bowl with Dak Prescott. And give me Danny Dimes at number 3.
Ooh.
Just signed the extension in the offseason. Had a career year thus far. And Brian Daboll can unlock him, can untap his potential that was there all along. And they're building around him. They took him to the playoffs with your leading receiver being Richie James and Isaiah Hodgins.
True.
The
That's a
talent's
sneaky
there.
pick.
And
That's a sneaky pick.
I think when it's all said and done next year at the same time, it could be Hurts, Danny Dimes, and whoever else. Maybe Jordan Love. We don't even know what's there.
Right.
Yeah. We really
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah. Well. Yeah, I mean another guy who I'd probably think of Jared Goff, maybe Geno Smith.
Those guys are there?
Those are two
Dude.
guys.
Oh my gosh, how did I completely forget about Gino?
Geno's up there.
Gino's got to be top 3.
Yeah, and Geno, he's in my top 5 for NFC quarterbacks, but and
Okay.
they're only building around him. They have a top 5 pick thanks to Denver, and they can spend whatever they want on him. They can get Geno's eventual replacement when they ride off in the sunset,
Yeah.
or they can get a top end talent, build around him.
Shout out Geno Smith, the former Charger.
That's right.
Chargers
Keep forgetting
legend
about that,
Geno
yeah.
Smith.
Exactly. Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, that's all we have today, Colin. Thank you again for coming on. We really appreciate it. All the way from Nebraska. Good luck to your Chargers. Hope you guys knock off the Chiefs. I'd really like to see that happen. Personally. But we're all here for some good football, for some good games. So, but yeah, just want to say thank you for coming on.
Hey, appreciate you guys for having me on. It's always fun to talk ball. And one of these days, I am gonna make it up to a Bills Mafia game. It's on my bucket list of NFL places to go. So
Let us know. We'll
one
show
of
you
these
around.
days. Yes, we'll do. But hey, man, appreciate you guys having me on, and bolts up, and yeah, we'll have to do this again.
Alrighty.
Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you again. Alrighty. Well, that was episode 38 of the Big Yak Podcast. Thank you again for coming on. Thank you, Nico, as well. Thank you, Moranto and Emerge. Thank you, Matt Johnson and BICPP Radio Network. We'll see you next week for episode 39 of the Big Yak Podcast. See you guys later.